Nothing like the smell of crushing cobblestone looming here on the Just Create SMP server. And I tell you what, last episode I kind of left you guys on a cliffhanger because I made all of these cobble gens and processors, well, without really turning them on fully and getting things up and running and kind of using them. Well, today we are going to use them. And that is going to be a rather large project, believe it or not. And I did find a name for this project. It's going to be called the Foundry. Well, and that's because this whole area is essentially going to be producing metal. And I mean, that name kind of made sense. But not only does it make sense, I'm also going to use it as inspiration for the actual build itself that surrounds this place. And also the interior look of the place as well after we get all of the logistics set up. And of course, if you haven't been able to tell already, I have been taking a lot of inspiration from real world things. I mean, the train track, for example, these buildings, yeah, a lot of stuff. It's been a lot of real world inspiration. And I've had a blast looking at like actual buildings and actual like factory locations and literally taking like all the inspiration from that and recreating those things in Minecraft. It has been really, really cool. So now that we have an understanding of what the process is going to be today, while ultimately making iron, copper, zinc, and then also producing brass, we can actually get started on this Foundry project, like the main part of it. And it's going to mean a lot of automation and maximizing these cobblestone generators. And the more I looked at these, the more I'm like, man, these are actually pretty small when compared to other setups that you can do. However, I think these cobblestone generators are very, very server friendly. And that's because you just don't have to worry about item overflow. They do stop. Even if you leave them running and they back up, they will stop producing items. And at the end of the day, we don't want cobblestone spilling out into the world and completely wrecking this server. So now with these cobblestone generators in place that we got set up last episode, I think it's now time to start building out our logistics modules. So now what exactly do I mean by modules? Well, I kind of want to keep the space that we have going here and extend it out into this section as well. This allows for really, really nice schematic creation. And if we ever wanted to increase the rate, we can simply drop in another cobblestone generator or add another one into the back, and that would extend the production rate. And meaning we could just, well, simply add another one maybe on top, for example. I want to treat this very much like satisfactory in a way when it comes to making these farms. So let's first get started with our cobblestone here. And I've already started working on these modules. They're about 13 blocks long. And then we have a few blocks wide. Not a big deal here, but I want the actual automation of the iron to essentially make its way, having a start input and then having an end input over here. So all of the processing needs to happen within this square. Now, ultimately, we need to make iron from this. This is probably the easiest module to set up because we just need to take the gravel and we need to wash it. Then that gravel then needs to be taken and split into two separate belts where we have one belt that is producing iron ingots and we have one belt that is producing flint. I'm thinking here we can set this up very similar to how we've set up all of our other fan processing setups, where we have a chute that goes directly over a trapdoor and we have a barrel that is directly on top of the chute, allowing the items to be dropped into separate stacks of 16 and immediately be processed, well, by washing. I don't know if this is going to work, but the pale oak leaves being the same color as the ground kind of fits. I mean, I would assume that the leaf allows the water to pass through. It's just kind of weird using like random things because this is from a vanilla backport mod, and I don't know if it has like capabilities here. I would assume it does though. And it looks like it does, which is perfect. So I have just a water wheel powering that, and that is going to be literally all we need. Now, after it's done processing, we want to send it onto a belt, and I'm going to create a section of belts here. I think on this side, if we just do flint on this side, we won't really have to worry about anything. But how are we going to divide the ingredients? Well, first of all, we can actually just send items directly onto a belt by using this funnel. So that's going to take the items and put it onto the belt. Then we need to use something like a brass tunnel to divide up the items. And one of those items I want being over here, and this is going to lead into a press. So we are going to compress the ingots and turn them, or compress the nuggets and turn them directly into ingots. And we shouldn't have to do any filtering here. So all we have to do is make sure it gets into it and then gets pressed and then gets automatically sent out. However, we do have to define on here that we want it to make iron. To divide this up, we have ourselves a flint over here, and then I am going to use an iron nugget on this side as the filter, and it's going to accept anything on the middle, automatically split the products, and then right here, we kind of have another problem because this has no filter in it, it's just going to shoot items out willy-nilly. We don't want that to happen. So I'm going to put a random item that shouldn't be in the list here or end up on this, and that'll prevent any of those items from coming out of the middle. Like I said, can't forget to put this on here, otherwise the press can cause problems and actually start making random things like trapdoors, for example, and we don't want trapdoors being produced here. Now we also need to put a list filter in, and I like to be very specific on this. That way we don't end up with random items somehow getting in here. So I want to make sure it is an allow list, and we only want to allow flint and iron nuggets to ever enter onto this belt. We could have denied gravel, that would also work, but it also allows anything to be put into here, and that can kind of disrupt stuff later on. But I think this is more than fine. We just got to get power hooked up to it, and we're almost ready to go. Oh yeah, almost forgot. How are we going to get items from here to here? Well, I was thinking we could get kind of creative here, and we could use a depot and a funnel to send the items in, and then we could use a weighted ejector over here to send the items to this. I think that would be hilarious, right? So we're going to have items basically being flung onto here, and all of those items will end up stacking up to this, and that should be able to easily handle the amount that's going to be produced here, because this can hold up to a stack just depending on how fast it slides onto the ejector. Now to get power over here, I'm just going to use chain conveyors. I mean, this is one of the easiest methods of moving power around, is by just simply using these chain conveyors underground. And I can put one right here, and I think this is going to be very, very simple. So we'll take the chain conveyor, and to power this whole section, we can place in a gearbox, it's vertical, and then just use chain drives, which it does look like I'm a little low on. But after grabbing them out of my storage, the chain drive can go all the way up the middle, and then to power all of this, since it's all going to be spinning the same way, just place a shaft in here. And oh yeah, we are going to have to reverse the direction because that is definitely spinning the wrong way. Oh boy. I mean, to change the direction, let's just keep this level. Let's just put it the same height as everything else. Slap that down there, and it gives us a little bit more room to adjust the directions of things. So we'll place this in, looking good, and put 2 gearboxes in here instead of just 1, right? So we'll have that going up. 2 of the vertical gearboxes. Now we're spinning in the right direction, and I can just carry the power over to this belt, and now this whole line is up and spinning. Now for this to all be processed, I do need to get power to the crushing wheels, and one of the easiest ways to do that is by using an encased chain drive, then slapping another one next to it, and just simply throwing in some gearboxes. You can see this is already starting to produce the cobblestone, and I also got to get, let's see, power going to this belt too. And that can be done with some encased chain drives, and I'll make it look symmetrical by placing it on the other side there. That ends up over here, and wouldn't you know it, this is ready to go. And look at it launching all of that. It is so satisfying to watch that. As soon as I flip this, you can see iron is starting to be produced, and quite a bit of it actually. And we're also producing flint. Okay, so now that we know this is running, I can actually go ahead and shut this off for right now. So now anytime I need any sort of gravel production, I can literally just use this schematic in this module, and bam, we have access to it. Now this one was pretty easy, but this next one is where things are going to get a little bit more complicated, because we have a multi-step process that needs to happen here. We need to take this, which is going to produce sand, flint, and gravel. We need to send that all into this area, and we need to turn this ultimately into red sand, which means we need to process it into clay. The sand, it needs to be processed into clay. We need a belt line that is producing flint and sending flint off in another direction to ultimately be combined with this flint side. And then we need to take that clay, process that clay up into blocks, and then we need to smelt the clay, and then we need to break it down by grinding it either with a crushing wheel or with a grindstone. And we also need to make sure that we are doing it fast enough to keep up with the system, this right here, that is actually producing everything. So you know what? I think to get started, I'm going to use the exact same system that we used here to get the items over here, because the first thing that this sand needs done to it is we need to wash it, right? To be able to get clay. That gets us even more clay on top of the clay that this is already producing. So everything is just going to end up dropped just like that. And then we'll go ahead and we'll continue our filter, accepting the flint into it, accepting the clay into it. And that should be the only two products that this thing is producing. Now, similar to how we've done this over here, we're also going to use the brass tunnel. But the brass tunnel here is going to just simply separate our flint. And then over here, we are going to send out our clay. Now, at the moment, it doesn't look like we can connect to this brass tunnel, but we should be able to accept items from the brass tunnel, at least I hope, immediately onto this. And notice this opens up whenever we do so. So unless this has like a weird interaction with like the same way it handles the brass funnel, where the brass funnel just doesn't work unless it's a singular item, we're going to have to test this, right? I've got to test and make sure that the weighted ejector can actually send the items. Otherwise, we've got to come up with another solution, and that could be just simply running another belt over here. But yes, let's just hope that the weighted ejector works for now. Now here's where things get a little interesting. We need to make sure that this area right here is our smelting location. And the reason I want this here, I want it to be kind of similar to the other side. And let's go ahead first. Let's get that trapdoor in. I just want to make sure that this area is the area that's containing the smelting operation. But what we're going to be smelting is terracotta, and the product we get from here is regular clay. And we need to turn that clay and compact it into clay blocks to turn it into terracotta. Now in my testing world, I did need to double up. So we are going to need 2. And to be able to get 2 and to actually funnel that in, we could do a setup like this. So that way both products end up in here, and we can make sure that this chute is interacting correctly by utilizing smart chutes. And we need to set up the presses. So the presses are what's going to allow this to work. So that's going to go all the way up here. And we now need to somehow get items and evenly split them into both of these presses. And so what I was thinking was possibly getting a chest, like a regular chest up here. Something like this and like that. And then on this side, we can probably use like brass funnels. I want to make sure that this right here will actually still come down and press even with the funnel in the way. And I guess we can use a hand crank for this. It does say overstress. Let me remove one of those. That should be more than fine. Does it come down and press? Okay, it's not, which has me concerned. I mean, I guess there is nothing in here to technically compress at the moment. Okay, so to test this out, we can throw like 4 stone in here, and then that should compress down. Oh, that's right. It does toss the stone down in. Let's just remove this for now, right? And you're seeing all this testing going on here. 1, 2, 3, 4 to make sure this works. Does it go through? Okay, so it does go through. Okay, so that allows this to function no problem whatsoever. This is going to work. So then to get the clay over here, I mean, that's a pretty easy process. We're going to take our weighted ejector, send the items onto the depot, and then just use a regular andesite funnel to get all of the products in there. Perfect. And then this will evenly split that clay, and I can set it to like 4, for example, and then we just need to make clay blocks or filtered on the basin. The process of getting power to this has posed quite an issue, I will say, just simply because of the direction that you have to power these presses. So I decided to go here and not actually block our input, because I can't bring it over here because the flinger will end up, or the weighted ejector will be blocked at that point. So I want to prevent that from happening. So I've done this instead, and I can cover these shafts. But yes, I am running a shaft through, and then we do have the same setup with the chain, this thing right here, the chain conveyor. I keep forgetting the name of it. The chain conveyor is down below, and then I'm running an encased all the way into the front. And now we basically need to test if the clay is being produced. Then we can start to process and crush this, well, as we continue on here. Now, beautiful. After a little bit of testing, this did actually function, and the weighted ejector does work. Oh, that is beautiful. What I do need, though, is I need the clay blocks to also be filtered onto the smart chutes because I don't want to accidentally pull the product out of here. So this is just to make sure that we're actually pulling the correct thing out of the basin. Outside of that, everything should be good. Now, instead of a smart chute here, you could actually use another setup. It is a little bit more janky, but it would work. You could put depots out here, and then this wouldn't have to worry about having any sort of filter, and then you just andesite funnel it directly into the chutes. But yeah, I mean, the brass is a lot cleaner. So this setup is perfect now. All I have to do is kind of turn it on before we actually get to crushing this stuff. And let's go ahead and continue that. Place in a shaft here, and then this is going to jumpstart. You can see that we're getting clay. We're also going to get flint. And yes, it is going to start throwing all of this stuff. And this method right here, I may have to figure out a better way of doing this. We may actually need to use the belt to actually send the items over. I just don't think the weighted ejector is going to be fast enough. You can see the items spilling on here, but I don't know. It's kind of, it's iffy. Yeah, I think the belt is going to be significantly faster and allow this to actually keep up. So I have the belt going into the barrel, and then I also switched it over to a smart chute just to make sure that it is able to keep up, because this does produce significantly more items, believe it or not, than the gravel. So placing this on, we can now see the items are funneling in a lot quicker, and this is able to keep up. And as you can see, there we go. We have a pile of flint now being generated, and we also have a pile of terracotta. Now we got to just process that terracotta, and I think crushing wheels are probably going to be the best way to go. And crushing wheels are really easy if they are connected up to a belt. All we've got to do is do a vertical gearbox here and a vertical gearbox on the other side. And the crushing wheels should align automatically with the flow direction of the belt, which just makes this so easy to use this setup. Now on the other side, after this does get crushed, we do want to use a funnel, and just to get it symmetrical with the this one over here, where these are both in line like so, I'm going to do the same thing here, but use a chest to get it onto the belt like this. Also, just to make sure it is fast enough, we have to use a brass for the output funnel, but there we go. So there is our output. This is going to output red sand, and that's what I wanted. I need red sand as the major output, and then over here we have another line of flint. And just to see if all of this works, oh boy, let's just turn it on and let's make sure that red sand is being produced and we are able to actively keep up with the entire setup here. And hopefully we don't end up with too much overflow. Like, this is going to be just fine. Like, this is no different than any of my other systems that are running. That should then get crushed, and we should see red sand being spit out of this. There it goes. And look at that. Red sand ready to go. Now, after seeing this going a lot faster, yeah, I think I'm just going to forgo sending it over to this side, and I'm just going to use a belt to make this go faster. Now, just in case you guys are wanting these, I will have all of these modules as their own individual schematics over on, well, my Discord. So you can find that link down in the description below, or you can go to discord.gg/ChosenArchitect and just check out the schematics channel, which I will have, like I said, both of these individual modules set up in there, and or any module that I work on today. Oh, and by the way, I almost forgot, safety first. We've got to put our safety girders up just to make sure that nothing gets sucked into this, including me. And this is more than enough to keep that from happening. Now, with these modules set up, it's time to start actually taking this and turning it into blocks. Just got to finish this guy off real quick. But over here is going to be the section for this. Now, the real thing I have to get done at the moment is to produce granite, utilizing that sand and flint with some lava. And then I also need to produce the andesite. So to be able to produce andesite, that is the only things needed to be able to make tuff and to also make the dripstone blocks. Now notice this does use a lot of flint, and that's where I was saying another module over here just to produce flint might be something that I need to do. But I was looking at how could I format this to be able to actually make these blocks. And I don't know if this is going to be enough to handle everything, but this I think might be a clever solution to this. What we'll do is we'll have a belt line of flint that runs here, turns around, comes back, and all of this flint gets inserted into this basin. So once one basin fills up with flint, the other one will fill up, and so on and so forth. We should end up with a loop of flint that essentially ends up back on a belt line if it does overfill, and that flint can then be stored in some sort of container. That's the idea, at least, and then it can be voided off if needed or what have you. But probably used for the other processes, right? For example, making the actual tuff and the dripstone. But over here, after that gets sent along, we also need another belt line that takes in product right here, and we can use a trap door to make sure that that stays on this belt. For example, this belt line could be the one that receives, I don't know, it receives gravel, right? Because one, we need gravel mixed with flint, and that is going to produce the andesite. So one belt line can have gravel coming from this farm over here, and then on the other one, it can have red sand. And then once it's finished making the thing, the weighted ejector then will send it onto this middle belt, which will then take it and drop it down into this middle section here. And this can be a sorting belt. Now, I really thought about using frog boards and chain conveyors here, but I really love the way belts look. I love this. And the chain stuff with the frogs, I don't know. It just really does. It removes a lot of this cool factor. Originally, I was planning on having the fluid pipes actually come up from the bottom, but after trying to use weighted ejectors here, I have discovered this is a little bit more troublesome than I originally thought, because this does not automatically connect correctly, and you can't rotate it either. It is very directional, and it is based off of the position of the actual cog. Oh man, the shaft that's inside. So yes, this will not work in its current form. So instead, what I'll have to do is use a gearbox underneath every single one of these basins. So what that means is I am also now going to have to route my fluid over the top of this, and in hopes that the press actually still works, which I'm pretty sure it does, and works through the pipes. But yeah, to get lava in here, we're gonna have to run them through the top, and that might actually look even better first, but it will look, you know, it'll look more steampunky. Oh, and actually save on the gearbox. I guess I don't need it on every single one. Yeah, no, I can just get away with one and then run some of the shafts underneath here. Still, I think this is gonna be really, really cool looking. So we place those ejectors like that, and we just continue having it go onto this belt, which I did move up top. Now, I know there's been some changes made to how far these fluid pipes can go, so I do want to try and extend this all the way out here, but let's just go ahead and run this here, and then we just run it along, and I'm hoping that I can get all of this lava transferred over here, and this actually reaches without the need of extra pumps. And I mean, this should be able to easily supply enough lava. And I think it has. Yeah, there's lava in there, and just to check, yeah, we have lava. Now I'm trying my best to handle all of the belt logistics, and I'm hoping that a singular belt down here can actually handle the output, but if not, I think I might be able to actually split this between 3 separate belts, and that might actually handle this even better. But for now, let's just think about one, and I've also got to think about getting the product into this, because these are like singular units, right? So I should be able to send this belt line right here with this sand product to be able to produce this. So how exactly am I going to do this? I think I'm just going to run it along the flint belt. So this is the flint belt that's running up top here, and it's going to be going the same direction. But to be able to get it over here, I should be able to actually continue this all the way over, right? Let's go all the way out here, and then I'll connect this belt all the way to this one. And then what I could do is pull the sand off of here with a funnel, and that should just completely pull all of that sand and get it up onto this belt, which we can run it and hopefully drop it into here. But we need to drop it in a very specific way. And I think that way is going to have to involve an item drain and then a chute. Now, if the chute fills up, the item drain shouldn't allow items to continue on, and that should allow me to use, for example, a brass tunnel yet again. So perfect. So now we have a brass tunnel, and then I am able to set this to first, prefer nearest, which should try to send the items here first, and then any excess we can then handle down the road. I can either, for example, void it, or we can store it. I really don't know what I would use red sand for, but I mean, we could throw it back onto this belt if it's not all being consumed here. Now, I think at this point I have almost everything ready to just be able to turn on and at least give it a nice little test and see if this is going to produce those few products. But what I do need to do is I also need to set this to output off of this belt. So we are going to need a few funnels here. So an output, actually, no, we need an output off of this belt. So this is going to be the main output that drops it onto this line and continues it on. So some things that should happen. All right, so we should have flint that runs along this belt, runs a loop, ends up back on this belt line if there is nowhere for it to go. Eventually to be voided if we have enough at the moment. If we don't have enough, we can always build another module and we can just continue and add that to the line to give this more flint. This is just one module because we are going to need another module that is going to be handling all of these other products, but possibly somewhere else. So this, we then need to route the items out and then have them filtered and stored into something. So this is merely going to be producing granite and andesite only. So without further ado, let's kick this on. And we also need to turn on our gravel producer. And voila, that is on. We'll turn this on as well and turn this on. So now we have everything kind of rocking and rolling. And these should be filling up with products. And we should start to see items getting routed. Oh, yeah, almost forgot. This does also need a brass funnel. There we go. I'm glad I was able to see that. Perfect. And you can see these are starting to produce things that we don't actually want. Okay, let's turn this off because I do need andesite. These have gravel but no flint because of the other side. Oh boy. And also, I don't even know how these are ending up with iron nuggets. Like, they shouldn't even have iron. What? This is why we test things, because it could cause an absolute mess. Okay. So yes, we do have to define all of these and make sure we get the filters in so it doesn't produce some weird stuff. And I've got to figure out how iron is getting in here. Okay, I think I see how, for some reason, this is like tossing the item, which is actually tossing the iron ingots somehow into the air. Like, and it's landing on this belt. Like, that's a very weird occurrence, but yes, I mean, we are going to be storing this iron in a separate place, but I think this is going to work now. Now, it would be nice to have an emergency shut off, but there we go. There's gravel. We know that is going to be producing just fine. And everything is in. Oh, goodness. All right. So just to simply watch what is happening on this belt line and to watch all of our stuff, like we are going to have iron thrown over here for now. But we should start to see all the flint building up, ending up getting tossed out, and right there we have andesite, like a lot of andesite actually. And it is building up a lot more items than I originally thought. I wonder if we should probably set up some sort of buffer inventory for here. I think that would be, yeah, probably necessary. And essentially to be able to do this buffer thing, what we'll do is we'll have this line that works like that. And then for this, we'll make sure that this is set to specifically only output a stack at a time. Like once a stack has built up, then send a stack. It makes the buffer system a whole lot nicer. Doesn't clog up the belts as much either. And so, yeah, I mean, this looks like it is working. Oh my goodness. And like really, really well. And good news, when it's on, my FPS has only dropped by 100 FPS. You know, not that big of a deal. For that though, I will blame the belts, but I do have to also get all of those belts covered. Now, before I end up with a million items spilled out on the ground, let me go ahead and make sure to shut this off before we continue on. And my goodness, is that beautiful, seeing all of that andesite and also all of that granite. Very good. Now for the other section, which is going to use the cobblestone, yes, it's going to be almost identical to this. There's going to be a few modifications I have to make, and it's also going to require mixers instead of presses. Tell you what, it is kind of weird watching this whole thing be assembled with the schematic in, and especially like all of the belts and stuff that don't really seem like they form correctly. Now I got that module, I believe, all converted. I've got all the mixers set up. We don't have the lava running into here just yet, but I was trying to figure out how I could implement this. Now originally I had it going down here, but I think what I could do is just send it to this next module, let it do the processing, and if there's any left over, then it will all be funneled out. So that way we're maximizing what we can get out of the main product, and then any residual will then be sent over and then sorted after the fact. I think that is going to be a much better way of handling all of this. But to do this, I need to output off of the belt, for example, our andesite, which is going to flow over here to make tuff. So we got to put andesite in that filter. And then on this side is going to be granite, which is going to be producing the dripstone. So yes, this is going to get mixed with lava, and the cobblestone, which is going to be routed out here, and is going to run down to both sides, which, by the way, these are being powered from this side. So I can actually scoot this back one like this. Actually, no, this one does have to be brought forward. You know what? I mean, we could probably figure out a way to power it over here. I'm just going to leave it extended, I think, once. But we do have to make sure that there is a trap door on here preventing the overflow. It is just kind of a weird thing that you do with the create mod. And so trapdoors, and then I do want to extend this belt line and continue extending this belt line all the way, because this is also going to be our output for those products. So now what we should see is we should see only, like, whenever we turn this on, we should see only the end result being Tuff and also Dripstone at the end. Now, if all is working, oh man, the last like 4 or 5 hours I've been working on this will be for something. So I'm going to turn all of my systems on, including the cobblestone, and I think almost everything is ready to go. It is a little bit laggy, but I mean, to be expected with as much stuff as going on over here. And we just need to start sending out our cobblestone, and it should evenly split. Like, if that side finishes up the filling, it should start, yeah, sending it out to the other side. I thought it would evenly split perfectly, but apparently not. And I just noticed it spit out all of this, even though I'm not sure why. Like, this should be able to... Oh, that's right, because this chute only supports 16 items, right? So what we got to do here is on this funnel, make sure this is set to 16. Exactly 16 to make sure it can go through the funnel. And you'll notice this is creating Tuff. Okay, we just got to make sure we're creating Dripstone. And it would probably help if this was turned the correct way. That definitely makes a difference, right? So now, let's put this back in the container. And now that should be loading up. Okay, perfect. Now we're starting to generate those materials. And that's what I want to see. And so, voila, there's the materials that we need. It feels so good to see those things build up. Oh boy, and now that I know this is functioning and I have so much iron being generated and I have tons of this material being generated, we are now one step closer to having this foundry fully up and running. And so, like I said, these modules will be over on the Discord. Just keep in mind, belts may be a little bit wonky whenever you do use them, but they do work. And I'm going to have them all set up for you guys over there, so definitely be sure to check out the Discord. And of course, guys, if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to click that subscribe button. I know it was a whole lot of logistical stuff, but sometimes that's needed, especially for big projects like this. And I can't wait to build all of the cool stuff around this. So also don't forget to drop a big old thumbs up and comment down below. What's your thoughts on using belts instead of frog ports? I wonder what you guys have to say about that one. But without further ado, it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that amazing thanks is going to go out to none other than Senpai. Yeah. So anyways, thank you so much for your amazing support and choosing to support me over on Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting my content in one of the best ways possible. And guys, I thank all of you guys, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode where we're going to expand on this and actually start producing the metal, and then we build. Oh man, I'm so excited for that. Getting all of the storage set up to be able to house all of this. This is going to be producing so much material. I am so excited for this, and might possibly be the largest foundry on the server. I think. I don't know. We'll see. Anyways, if you enjoyed, I'll see you in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching.